It's another case of a tale of two leaders responding in very different ways to a national tragedy. As you may recall, after a 21-year-old white supremacist murdered 9 African-American worshipers at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, Barack Obama visited the city and delivered one of the most memorable speeches of his presidency.
Perhaps this tragedy causes us to ask some tough questions about how we can permit so many of our children to languish in poverty, or attend dilapidated schools, or grow up without prospects for a job or for a career. Perhaps it causes us to examine what we're doing to cause some of our children to hate.
And now, more than 3 years later, the nation is grappling with another attack on a minority group in what they thought was a safe religious space, 11 Jewish worshipers at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. But this presidential visit was different. It was a visit several Jewish leaders, and Pittsburgh's mayor asked Donald Trump to postpone, and one national leaders from both parties declined to attend with him. When Trump did arrive, throngs of protesters were waiting for him, and he made no public statements. Then this morning, he took to Twitter to promote his appearance with a video claiming, quote, "Small protest was not seen by us, staged far away. The fake news stories were just the opposite, disgraceful." And after that brief mention of his solemn visit, Trump turned full force back to his current top issues: birthright citizenship, immigration, loopholes, and securing the borders. Those are also likely to be the themes of the 8-state 11 rally tour he's kicking off today as we enter the home stretch ahead of the midterms. And on the Democrat side, they're sending out heavy hitters like Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Oprah, among others, to get out the vote. Of course, both sides are accusing the others of spreading misinformation along the way, and in many cases, they are not wrong. Joining me to discuss are Alan Solomont, former ambassador to Spain. He's now dean of the Tisch College of Civic Life at Tufts University. Good to see you. Former State Treasurer Joe Malone. Joe, thank you for being here, too.
My pleasure.
Is it fair to say, Joe, that the Republican message in the midterm is fear? Invaders are coming across the southern border in untruths when they say they're protecting people with pre-existing conditions. That is the message, is it not?
Well, much like the Democrats pushing the elderly woman off the cliff.
We're not going to do it. What about them?
But the point is, in politics, you have consultants who sit around the table and they say what's going to get people out of their homes and to the ballot box, come election day.
Even if it's fear-inducing.
Well, I think there's enough there that there's clearly a caravan, and there's clearly a disparity between the Democrats and the Republicans. Republicans want to seal the borders. The Democrats don't. And this is Trump's way of saying there's a clear difference.
Well, yesterday it was going to be 5,200 troops. Here's the president earlier today.
We'll go up to anywhere between 10 and 15,000 military personnel on top of Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border. Nobody's coming in.
Can we stay on this with you just for a second? There are 2,000 National Guards people already. They're border control already. He's now talking 15,000 people when they're 1,000 miles away and going to be nowhere near the border anytime soon. This isn't just stoking fear in the American people.
He's exhibiting strength, and he's trying to discourage that caravan from coming any closer before it does get closer, which is when you can have the most potential for harm being done either through the migrants or through the people working on the military side.
Ambassador, you may not like this, but if you look at these polls in Nevada and Arizona amongst GOP people, and the goal is to gin up the base, the single most important issue by a landslide is immigration. So essentially, he's trying to get as much enthusiasm on his side, I think successfully, as you're trying to do with the Democrats. It's working, no?
I hung up my partisan spikes, Jim.
When you were the #1 fundraiser in America for Barack Obama.
That was then, this is now.
I know.
So we have a research shop that's been studying youth voting since 2002. And I think the Republican Party is making a huge mistake because they're going to lose a whole generation, especially a whole generation of women. By 2020, millennials will be 40% of the American electorate. 40% of them are non-white. We do polls of 18 to 24-year-olds.
We're going to get to them in a second, yeah.
Okay, so historic numbers say that they're extremely likely to vote in these midterms. And there is a tectonic shift taking place in American politics, and it's being driven by young people.
Okay, I'm not going to let you off the hook, though, in terms of your former life. We're talking about the Republican message. Do the Democrats have a message? You can do this objectively, other than we're not Trump. Is there a message
You know,
which
frankly,
may be enough in a midterm, but is there another?
In midterms, I think I don't think message is as important as who's going to come out to vote. And let me just say, Donald Trump won in 2016 not because of who voted for him, but because of who didn't vote. And that is changing. Young people are, and I'll say about gun issues. So 34% of the...
Can we put that up? 34% of millennials say...
18 to 24-year-olds.
Say it's very likely they're going to vote,
extremely
right?
likely.
Which is it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's low, but as relates to that age group, it's very high.
It's the highest. If 30% of 18 to 24-year-olds show up this year, it will be the highest percentage since 1982. But 50% of those who report being involved in gun violence efforts to combat gun violence say they're extremely likely to show up.
That's bad news for the Republican Party, if they show up, by the way. Is it not?
If, number one. But secondly, I mean, this is millennials are changing by the day. You know, as they say, if you're not liberal when you're young, you don't have a heart. If you're not conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain. I mean, these guys are growing up. They're starting to pay taxes as they come out of college and enter into their 30s, own a home.
You said when I got older I was going to become anti-tax like you. That never happened,
But you're mellowed beautifully.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
But the point is, and I certainly have great respect for Alan and the work they do over at Tufts, but we are living in a very volatile world where even now the Democrats are saying they're concerned that the Hispanic vote isn't going to be as large.
Yes, but in the short term, even if those millennials, and Alan can respond to this in a minute, evolve into something else, as you suggest they may, now that spells real danger for the Republican Party, does it not? Now,
Now it certainly does. And if you're looking for a coalition and you're the Democrats, certainly the youth vote is a huge part of it, no doubt.
So young people have not always voted Democratic. They voted in the 80s Republican. But today...
Is that because of Ronald Reagan? What was that about?
Probably.
Okay.
Today, 45% of the 18 to 24-year-olds that we polled say that they're likely to vote for a Democrat. 26% say they're likely to vote for a Republican. 23% say they would vote for an independent if they had the choice. So another headline is that young people don't have faith in either party. They do have concern about issues. They're concerned about immigration. They're concerned about climate. They're concerned about guns.
But that's, by the way, if I could stop you there, the no trust in either party is why the Democrats are nervous about Latinos, who they are convinced in places like Texas with Beto O'Rourke or Nevada or any of those Southwest, or Florida, for example, they're counting on Latino turnout. You hear these interviews. We had Chuck Todd from Meet the Press on the radio with us last week. He visited a lot of those southern states, and they say, nobody's doing anything for us, including the Democratic Party that's counting on it. That's bad news for your old side, yes? Your old side.
So we look at young people, and among young Latinos, they say they're going to show up. The highest percentage...
And what kind of numbers?
Well,
comparable to that overall 34%?
Oh, even higher.
Really?
Yeah, because actually, it's of all young people, the number is 34%. If you look at African-American young people, it's significantly higher, who say they're going to vote, and if you look at Latino young people, it's significantly higher. And the worst news for Republicans is where young women are. They are the most unlikely to side with a Republican and the most likely to vote for a Democrat.
You know, I want to give you a piece of what I consider to be good news for your side. I don't even know if you agree with this. Steve King, who to me is about as racist as any congressperson who's ever walked the planet, from Iowa, who's been tolerated by the Republican Party. The congressman who heads the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee says no more money for this guy. He's supporting a white nationalist in Toronto. He met with white nationalists in Austria after funding his trip based on his visit to concentration camps there. Is this an aberration, or is the Republican Party finally figuring out that when their president does the nationalist dog whistle at a rally, that turns all the people that Alan's talking about off?
So I think on both sides, that needs to become more of the norm. When there's a Democrat who is standing with Farrakhan, he ought to be chastised.
How about the president using the term nationalist when he knows exactly what he's signaling to the crowd?
So I'm saying on both sides, there's a long way to go.
But only one side has a president.
It takes courage when you're on the Steve King side to call him out on it, and it should happen on both sides.
We only have a couple seconds left. If I call you on November 7th,
Yep.
Are you going to be able to say to me that 34% who said they're extremely likely to vote actually did, or are you going to have to explain to me why they didn't?
I will tell you this. If you call me on November 7th, I'll put you on the phone with our research team, and they'll tell you exactly who showed up. Let me just make one more point and bring it close to home. So we looked at every precinct in Massachusetts 7 and looked at the race that Ayanna Pressley and where there were large numbers of young people in precincts, the turnout increased dramatically more than others. In Ward 21, Precinct 2, which is where the BU student village is, it showed a 400% increase in turnout over 2016. Way beyond any other.
And I agree that that's big trouble for Republicans if that's the case. But I would also add here that, again, there's volatility here where, you know, some groups show up and you don't expect it. Other groups show up at less numbers. We'll see what happens.
I remember when you were a partisan. We were young and irresponsible. Nice to see you, Alan.
Well, I can do a lot more getting the next generation involved now than I can being a partisan.
Keep doing it. Joe Malone, thank you for your time.
Pleasure,
appreciate
Alan.
it, gentlemen, both. Once again, Election Day is now less than a week away on Tuesday, November 6th, and early voting is going on now through Friday in Massachusetts. For more information about where to vote in your city or town, visit massearlyvote.com. And if you're still trying to make decisions before you cast your ballot, be sure to check out our series of debates here in Greater Boston, from governor to Secretary of State to question 1 on nurse staffing levels, question 3 on transgender protection laws. We've debated them all and plenty more. You can find every one of them online, all in one place at wgbh.org/debates.